Hello, this is Lee Lewis of the Welshman Studios, and welcome to this show. This came up on my as a kind of a joke, really, about MIDI. I typed in MIDI in the wrong area, so what happened was I had a flood of dresses that came through. So we had floral, and I made it sort of like a fun sort of comment about it. But it did sort of got me thinking. And Prideless Chicks is her main channel, and she said something about I have asked her for permission whether to play, because she says in such an elegant way, and she explains she knows the law and the backstory of the game and how it has been changed to a same-sex relationship, and that basically that the two men, it was only implied in the game that he had a partner. It could have been a partner in sort of in a business or whatever, but the game had changed, that they had a whole sort of scene, and she said it was over kissing and anything like that. That was in it. The one that looked like he had an illness, we can just say it that way, and it was in fact that he wanted to be put out he wanted to die, so he sort of wanted to die with tablets in the drink, and they wanted to have this, and then they had a night, sort of like they last ever supper together, and they went through the town, and then he discovers then that the guy that he was with put tablets in both of their drinks. And instead of like Pride Sticks sort of said in her rightly said that instead of saying, well, no, I want to die, and the kind of normal response would be, if somebody loves somebody else, is that you would want to protect their life over your own. That's what true love is, and as Jesus sort of said that he, sort of died for his friends. That's what he want. There's no sort of greater love than someone that dies for his friends or loved ones or your children. So anyway, let me get through all this right. So definitely. So today's word of the day is
emasculate.
So just to say again,
emasculate.
So what does that word mean? Deprive a man of his male role or identity in his mind, whose success emasculated him. See, that's got a slight slant into it, and I'm going to explain something else too. Make someone or something weaker or less effective. The refusal to allow them to testify effectively emasculated the committee. The reason why I was doing this, last night I accidentally went onto TikTok, and I never go through the live shows where you just can scroll on by, scroll on by. Well, anyway, I was scrolling on by, and there was an awful lot of conversation about the trans agenda, and I just want to say, if I didn't say it, I can't quite remember if I said this, I'm coming out of a place of love. I'm not here to hurt anyone. I'm just wanting to say that my concerns are being from that community that I was in, that I was totally confused because I was abused, that I totally was broken down. My barriers are broken down, and as it says that in the Bible, that if you're totally broken down, you have no walls of protection spiritually. So I went through my own history of the kilt, which was, if I can get it right, so we got and it goes way back. So I wanted to go through what the Welsh kilt was and stuff like that. Let's have a look. I will go through. So this is the Welsh kilt. And of course, people more it's well more known of the. It depends. The Welsh kilt, the Scottish kilt, and the Irish kilt. They sort of made differently in the weaving, but Welsh tartans, kilts. So many of these in America and other places like that, they might find this strange, but yeah. So this is a kilt. If I can get this bigger, perhaps. It's what I've read as well, which I was quite surprised at, that the kilts are more recent, supposedly. I do not trust timelines and dates anymore. And there's another video coming up from God Rules 2 is his website. I will put up about the biblical timeline. So anyway, let's just go back, I think, because it was taking a bit long. Oh, there it is. So there's the Welsh kilt, and of course let's see, yeah, so we have it mostly green, and this is the weaving that the Welsh kilts have. So the Scottish are, I think, red or blue normally. So we're gonna have a chat about this man in a minute. Ooh, actually, there's a few actually shows on here, especially I'll make a short video on this one. This, if you remember, this guy, he wanted to be a Filipino woman, and he was very, very successful, but this is what he has now got to say. He's now Christian, and he's I mean, this once you transform, if you like to use that word, into Pacific area, it's hard to go back if you can. I mean, you've had feminizing of the face, and you can't fully go back. Perhaps he can, you've had so many plastic surgeries. I think it's someone botched where he got problems in breathing anyway, as you can see with the nose as well. And fair play, he's been pretty vocal, and he was very, very popular. And so he's on CBN News.
A lot of women, take issue with what Dylan's doing, but I feel like, Dylan has 8 million followers, and so many kids watching that, they're very impressionable. They might want to change because they've seen their favorite TikTok star doing it. So I would just tell parents, kids should be careful on social media. They get very addicted easily. There's a lot of bullying on social media. I would just say to parents, just keep an eye on their kids. Make sure they're safe. They shouldn't be on TikTok all day. They should be out, playing soccer, reading books. So I would just say to parents, just keep an eye on your kids, because there are a lot of people online that influence kids like this. Dylan Mulvaney is almost pushing kids to transition, telling them to, Dylan keeps saying that they're a girl, not a woman. They want to be a girl, they want to go through puberty, and they're 25 years old. So, I think that manipulates children's minds, and they also want to be like these influencers.
What would you say to your child if you had a one-on-one with a child who was struggling with gender dysphoria? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I would just say, just remain strong, find love within your heart. Also going to church is very helpful when you hear the teachings of Jesus from the Bible. It's just very positive, and some kids, they feel lost, they feel confused. So I would just say to the kids, you will get through this. Stay strong. This is just a phase. You one day are going to be a great, successful person. You're going to have a great career. You're going to have a great education. So just please hang in there, be strong, and just know that there's people out there that will support you. Family, friends, there are psychiatrists, there are people out there to help. So, if any kid is watching this and feeling confused or lost, just know that there's people out there that can help.
Great. And are there members of the trans community that have reached out to you since you made the decision to detransition?
Yeah, so on one side, I've had a lot of people that detransition that have actually messaged me and showed their support, thank me for speaking out. I've had so many parents across America, saying thank you, they've also shared their stories of their kids, struggling with gender dysphoria. So I've had a lot of messages, but in terms of the hardcore trans lobby, the very, very kind of far liberal trans groups, they have been really, really harassing me like non-stop on Twitter. I've had so many direct messages, death threats, harassment, and it's just why would anyone want to do that hate, God and Jesus are all about love, spreading positivity, helping one another, kindness. So I feel like these people, they're not happy with themselves, so they're trying to project their hate on someone else. But yeah, they've sent me so much hate, and I almost feel like the trans lobby has almost become like a cult. So they are pushing these ideas on children. They are, pushing this into the education system, and someone like me, I left the trans community and suddenly they attack me. They try to dehumanize me. They call me names online. They compare me to some very horrible people. I saw one tweet was comparing me to Hitler, like really, really horrible things. But, I just ignore that. I don't pay attention to the hate. I'm all about love. I'm all about positivity, finding God and finding happiness within.
That's awesome. Ali, I just want to thank you for joining me today and thank you for sharing your wonderful story. It's amazing, just the power of God and Him changing your life and how you're really on a mission to, save children. So that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, and have an amazing day.
So that's awesome. I mean, and I've noticed the more that he's in these interviews, I've noticed he's gone more masculine. That I think that it takes time for these traits to drop away and fall away, and it's amazing that he's actually done this. I think he's very brave to speak out, and I think he probably felt a gap where things have been sort of hidden or pushed to one side, and things are not being heard, and there's a few heartbreaking stories, and I don't know if I will have time to make such a big video on these. I suggest that if you want to go into these channels and have a look a bit more. So you've got the Blair White. As you can see, she regrets my penis gone is forever and I regret it. And the other one, which I might play bits of, is the same channel, and the dark side of transformation, regret, and activist bullying. So I might just scroll through those quickly that these people regret, and they, some of them can't. I especially play in which he sort of she regrets doing it, but has still got even though she had gender dysphoria in the beginning, and she'd now got it as a male. So I thought, I mean, this wasn't planned again today, but I was concerned what was saw on TikTok yesterday and what some of the people were saying, which were, you look beautiful, and he was clearly, a male. But what I was looking at was the colours that he was wearing, she was wearing, if you want to call it. Now, it was black and red, so I'll just go into TikTok to this account, and I saw this person was like, oh, I'm gonna have the my last checks, but I'm gonna go through with it. But then I noticed the colours, which were black and red, which is witchcraft. But also I noticed the earring hanging down. Why we are devolving as a species. So even our buildings, this is the Baroque, as they say. I didn't believe in timelines. I think they're altered, and I got a show coming up on why the 1,000 years have been fudged. But as you can see, these kind of buildings, they're saying that we're evolving, getting better, at it. But then you've got modern sort of architecture, which you may come up now. Maybe here. where modern architecture is ugly, you know, and it's been made ugly because they want you to have a lack of imagination. And I know just going off on one there, but it's, you know, they can't create these buildings today. I mean, they could to a limited extent, but even pictures of like the Mona Lisa, I think is that make a similar picture of that. They are from those periods because there was no brush strokes. The only way that they could do that without any brush strokes would be able to print it out. So that was interesting to me, the devolving of society as a whole. So it's systemic. It just doesn't stop there. I mean, the guy that went onto the school board, as I said, he was gays acting against grooming. He was saying, and I know this goes into another area, but he said to the school board, you know, we've won. He said, we have got our equal rights, but it's just not stopping there. I've seen in the news where people have married their horses over the years. I think when I was 19 I heard about that story, and I'm 44 now. So people are marrying horses, they're marrying their dogs, and they're marrying trees, and it just doesn't stop. They can't stop at one thing. When they reach their goal, then they got to go again and again and again. Where was I? Now see this guy, he says this. He likes to wear dresses and high heels, and you know, and he says he's a straight man, and he just likes to wear it. He just likes to wear heels and skirts are more than just fashion attributes for this man. Now, a few years ago, there was a British ad, and I think it went, "Don't you wish your girlfriend was not like me? I don't know what the words were, but anyway, he was walking in these high heels, and he was wearing this sort of a attire. So he was a businessman, but he was wearing a skirt, and at the time I thought that was, you know, it was funny. And this is before, you know, the big push into going into the realms of, you know, looking into children, you know, going into transformation. And that's why I played the video there. You don't know yourself until you're 18, 19. They pushed back the age for sexual consent within the UK to 16 from 18 when I was young. So, and I think in America, I think you can't even drink until, I know you can't drink until you're 21. You can't do a lot of things until you're 21. Or so it used to be. So, looking back at the past where men wear tunics and stuff like that. Now I'm looking at my own country, Wales, and the reason why I'm looking into my own country, Wales, was for another reason. But so we got the colour. This is this year with a tongue out. Where you always see a tongue out, and I may be going off on one again, but when you see the tongue out, it always means sex magic. So you got the red, the green, and the white. Okay, so what are the 5 colours of magic? Below the 5 colours of magic, white, blue. So you got white, red, and green, and black, of course. So that woman was wearing or man, that's transitioning to being a woman. He has got the red and black, which I did explain that. So it's, of course, it's witchcraft, and it's, so that's the colour of the magic. Of course, there we have the Baphomet, which is the male and female combined, which is their ultimate goal of androgyny. So we got the pentagram there, which is just, she's just was wearing there, which is inverted, which is like Lucifer, or so it's Lucifer basically. And so a satanic quote from Dogma et I can't even say that, but ours when the Latin words solve, dissolve, and gugalia. So, where's my... So it's looking through prehistoric Wales. And, of course, I'm going to do a video on this where you got the mounds where we have the giants. And apparently, when the Romans tried to invade the UK, or Britannia, that apparently there were giants on the earth in those days and those days after, and apparently there was a lot of giants in these mounds they found. So the Smithsonian and the Vatican have got plenty of sort of evidence of it, and they're hiding a lot. That's why I'm looking into another show there, so it's bleeding over. I'm sorry about that.
That shit looks fly. I think that shit is gangster. Let me tell you something. Any man that looks at a woman's outfit and says, hey, I gotta go to the store and buy that shit so I can rock it, bro, you got a problem.
This highlights from Paris week. Hang on, is my mic's playing up? Highlights from Paris Fashion Week of 2022. Men are the new men. So, what does that remind you of? This in particular. Isn't it the festival? Is it of the dead? Is in Mexico the oldest? So, you've got this the Anka, which that is something in occult. This is the occult here with the top hat and the veil. And of course you got it there and there and there, but of course now we've got the dress that's half hanging down with the pants that that look like that. And in prison, that would mean that basically I'm up for service. That if you have pants that are hanging down, that they're willing to engage in sexual activity. So, looking through these, I mean, again, I mean, why are they going after the black actors? Is because the blacks were they were together. They were very, very much family orientated. They had strong religious beliefs, and then of course that's why they. In the 1970s, things, you had the sexual revolution of the 60s, bleeding into the 70s, where then there was drugs introduced, and the collapse and the breakup of the family, and that was all orchestrated. Now, there's a few other places where I'm going to go. Oh, this is my friend, Arson Darkness. I love that verse, and I actually put that down in a pre-recorded thing for the future, because I love that. So anyway, let me just alter this. I'll bring that away. That's a bit better actually. And this is so pitiful.
Hey guys, the video you're about to watch is an incredibly emotional and intense interview I did with a male to female, back to male detransitioner named Shapeshifter. It's going to air in full the day after this video goes live on my podcast channel, The Blair White Project, link in description, and I have a disclaimer. Some people may be confused why I refer to Shapeshifter as he or him despite his presentation, which is still feminine. But that's because the entire point of this story is to show that males who simply are feminine are being told that they must undergo sexual reassignment surgery. Shape is learning to live with the surgeries and permanent damage done to his body and all the health complications, so I encourage kindness and empathy in the comment section. Enjoy, and remember that the full hour-plus interview will be on my podcast channel and streaming platforms the day after this is posted. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So, part of your kind of transition horror story here is that you have a neovagina that isn't working properly, you have osteoporosis and scoliosis. So,
yeah.
Can you talk about that?
I mean, it's transphobic to say, but after I've been through the system, I 100% feel like I was part of some cruel medical and social experiment. Except for nobody checked on me, and if I offed myself, nobody, I would not even be included in any statistics. I'm sure they would just write me off as some other issues. None of the people who gave me letters, surgeries. Moreover, I've spent thousands of dollars. I've traveled across the country, did all the consults trying to get help. So every time I went to consults, I entered my history, my information. None of those people are studying like the transitioners. So when trans community says regret rate is 1% and complication rate is 1%, that's bullshit.
It is bullshit.
Bullshit, and you guys need to hear this. But what they don't really tell you is that the body treats you as a wound.
It tries to close up.
Yes, constantly trying to close up. In my case, yeah, it started shutting down right away pretty much. So I got a revision. Like a few months later, I was back on operating table, and I got blamed at the time that like you didn't dilate enough, even though I was religiously dilating, and I couldn't understand it, just patient blame pretty much. Now that I talk to other people, it's the same happened to them, you know, that's what they don't tell you, you know?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it's like, so they kept on blaming me for not dilating enough, and so they did the surgery, which they just opened me back up, and they're like, you have 8 inches, congrats, and I was like excited. So I drove back to Massachusetts, and by the time I got home, pretty much, I already lost 1 inch, I couldn't dilate back up, but I was like,
Oh my gosh.
okay, I'm gonna save the 7 inches, that's plenty, you know, and I was like, putting stents in me, driving a car with a dildo inside of me, and with tight panties, like, to the point that I couldn't even pee. And then my back started hurting like 2020. I thought it was a mattress issue. I kept on like, oh my god, my back hurts so much. If I sit up, like, then I went to chiropractor, and he was like, you have scoliosis. And again, like my paperwork is female, so and again, I'm like, don't want to tell like random people that don't need to know that I'm trans. You know, it's like, and he was like, I guess if I told him earlier, I would have probably he would have put two and two together that maybe it was hormone related. But then I did some more research, and I ended up going for that finally bone scan in 2021 maybe. I realized I had like osteoporosis in my spine. It's pretty bad, but honestly, my story is not as bad because there's other detrans males. I don't know will I have time, but like they have it worse. People who have no sensation in their like groin. It's
I
like,
saw a viral post from another detransitioner who said that
yeah.
you could literally stab
Yeah,
his
that's true.
genitals with a knife and there is no sensation.
Yeah, Richie.
And that is so, like, I don't think people understand. Like, you know, for years as a trans person, I've been asked like my reasons for not wanting the surgery, etc. And people are like, well, yeah, maybe you won't be able to orgasm anymore. In their mind, their head goes to like, will you be able to still come afterwards? The reality is, for some people, and you're saying for yourself, you can't even have sex. You have had a sex change, and now you cannot have sex.
Yeah, it was not a fair trade at all. So, and
Yeah.
plus they didn't tell me there was a study done in Sweden where it showed that suicide probability went up. You can bleep out that word. Sorry, I said it. But like, yeah, like I wish somebody told me, like one of the therapists, like you can do this, but you will more likely to off yourself after this, according to certain studies. Why is it all hidden online and nobody talks about it? Why do people have to look for it themselves?
So, this is like really intense for me to hear all this, obviously. And it's so interesting because obviously we're coming from different sides of the coin to where
Right.
like transition was a correct decision for me, and trying to place myself in the shoes of someone who it's not is very emotional. Like, I'm so sorry this has happened to you. I don't know what else to say. I mean, you've had the surgery. What does it feel like to miss your penis?
Honestly, like I didn't miss it up until I started I missed it, but I couldn't admit it to myself. It was like a sunk cost fallacy. And then I started having phantom limb thing happening. I would wake up in the morning and have dreams about having a penis. And then I would wake up and not have it. And it was just such a mirror situation because when I was convinced I was a woman, I was like remembering how I was a kid waking up dreaming I had a vagina. And now I'm like, I wish I could go back. I made a huge mistake, you know? But I realized I will never be able to get back my penis. And it's a very traumatic realization. And it's super sad. I mean, I don't want to like a pity party, but it is sad. Like, I mean, I fucked my life, kind of. I could have been so much more vibrant person and could have accomplished so much more, you know? And I do miss my full sex drive, and I honestly can't even take too much testosterone because it will give me more sexual desires, and I can't really experience all that because it's traumatic. And honestly, moving forward, I don't even know like what hormones I'm gonna be on. And I told them that I was not happy with my transition. I was trying to get in touch with one of the therapists who gave me letters, and nobody even gave me his email. So yeah, it's like they really don't care. It's like they don't want to even know, because why? It's a big industry. All the surgeons.
And it only is a bad look for them to have a patient say, I regret this.
Right, because it doesn't align with the general narrative, because it will
Right.
make a lot of people reconsider if that's the right step for them. I wish somebody hugged me a few years back and be like, you know what, you can present feminine, you can wear heels, hair, whatever you want, but the sad reality, we don't have technology to make you an actual woman.
So
And
you wish someone would have stopped you from transitioning.
I wish, and my parents tried to, but they were not in America, and they just told me like, it was more of a religious spin. But at the time, I was not willing to listen to them. They just said, in a Muslim religion, it's haram. They said it's like you're going against God. But if one of medical professionals said, like, I just feel so angry. I feel like these people didn't have my best interests. They never tackled my childhood traumas. They never dove deeper. They just assumed I was like, they affirmed me, into this, I believe in, into self-harm.
That's what's so dangerous, right? Is that we have these affirming therapists and doctors now who have every incentive in the world to say, yes, you are trans, this is the issue you're struggling with, rather than try to see if there's another cause. And a lot of times there is another cause. In your case, there were more causes that weren't looked at.
But I think people need to go back to a science lab and figure out and have better stricter definition of what true trans is. And this is not gatekeeping. We're in trouble. Like there's already so many kids that regret it,
And what's so wrong with gatekeeping?
Yes, it's like, this is the only medical situation where you get to choose your own treatment plan. Like, what the hell? You get to choose, like, do you just want to be on
That's
hormones?
such a great point.
Or do you want to take it further with bottom surgery? It's like,
That's
they should
such a
be,
great
maybe
point.
they should study and be like, okay, in these people, bottom surgery didn't work, or maybe bottom surgery doesn't work. Maybe socially presenting helps a lot of people. Honestly, I enjoy presenting feminine. Like, it doesn't bother me. I enjoy it. Like,
So someone should have explained to you that it's
Yes.
okay for you to do that without getting anything irreversible done to
right,
you.
or even changing my paperwork. I feel like a lot of it was escaping male violence, because I was always in a effed up way. I felt like I had the surgery. Psychologically, I knew I was never going to be accepted by other men as a man, and maybe it was my way to gain acceptance, looking like a woman, And it's almost like I had the surgery to cater towards patriarchy, but they also like didn't even give me good results, so I can't cater towards them. Like,
Right.
it's like, really, people? And all the men that worked on me are just straight men, as far as I know. And it's like, really, people? You couldn't even give me. That's another thing. Like, they literally, after multiple surgeries, they couldn't even give me a few inches that stay open. Not even 3 inches. Like, I literally have 1 inch depths right now, and it's like, really, people? Honestly, this transition, like, I lost so many family members, like I haven't seen my grandma in years. And they loved me no matter what I was, in their own way. My grandma always loved me. But I can't show myself to her because she always wanted me to have children. She will have a heart attack if she sees me, so she may pass away and I will never see her. But now the family that was here, that was supportive of me, that live in America, the families that live in America, now the transition is pulling me further away from them because first of all, they're confused. Third of all, like, I feel a little angry. I just feel like they affirmed my delusions. And honestly, I feel a little angry towards them. I know it's not their fault. Like, I own the fact that I signed on a dotted line, but I was just a traumatized kid. Like, my sister, she grew up with me. She knew the conditions we grew up in. She knew that, like, I was traumatized. But again, she was like, she's even younger than me. There's no way she could have known. But they kind of, like, didn't protect me from myself.
And that's so sad. And it's children don't, as I said, don't know themselves. Especially children don't know, and for them to actually I leave that off, actually, the cover for this, that they actually don't know as children. Do you know what I mean? And you have adults around them that are affirming that they that if they put on a dress, they want to try on a dress. So sometimes it's a kind of a way of exploring how a woman feels, I suppose, in a kind of way. There's a thing that just came to me now. I think it was Kindergarten Cop, when the mother was concerned about her son was playing with dolls, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was an undercover cop, he said, "Oh, what it is?" He said that he's looking up. What is he looking up the dresses of the dolls? So basically, he's just trying to find out what was basically underneath underneath a girl's dress. So that's funny how that came to me there. So a lot of people have been. A all I saw in the shop the other day was Harry Styles, and he is pretty flamboyant and wears a lot of dresses, whether he wants to. And I have been looking into what was I looking into? I mean, do you find that I mean, even if they started, to make this kind of a kilt thing, you got a split going up the dress in the front anyway. I mean, this looks ugly for a man anyway. Do you know what I mean? This is, this is more like 1940s, but with a downgrade. If this was a woman, we've got this kind of a feel where we have. I think this is from the Amish community. This top part, or something from that kind of thing. What was I looking at? Yeah, I was looking at the old, where the Romans wore. They tried to sort of say, well, men used to wear them in the past, but the Romans used to wear this because it was often referred the men throughout history sometimes paired. Rome soldiers resembled a modern mini skirt. No, that's no mini skirt. The mini skirt would be much higher for a start and much tighter, and easier for them to march without overheating. In the Middle Ages, men wore tunics, and later during the Renaissance period, they also put on. They put in skirts, and I think it was another name for it. But again, yet they. So I was trying to look into why more, including maids, are wearing the dresses and skirts nowadays. And I think that I did look into ritual humiliation. So, like many black actors have been made to put on a dress. In fact, I think every black actor and white actor at some point in their history in Hollywood has put on a dress. And they had examples like Mrs. Doubtfire, Big Mama's House, stuff like that. And I mean, I'll play. Let's have a look. Give me a sec. So I'll just play a little bit of Jordan Peterson's, because he was quite vocal on the Joe Rogan Experience or show about this issue, and I think the Canadian government wants to try and take his doctorate off him and he was quite honest and brutal about it. Well, he had his he went into the psychology of it all, and Joe Rogan didn't even want to answer him back on it. He was just too afraid. And I think Joe Rogan is a little bit of a shill, and he believes in certain things, and then now that he's got much bigger, he's sort of backtracking and say on the moon landings and stuff. Whether they believe in that or not, that's not the issue of this show. And I wasn't going to make this, but what I saw on TikTok last night, the live, when it's just scrolling through live, it was about 3ish in the morning, I was seeing all these kinds of things, and it was concerning. It's just one after another, and it's everywhere. So I do avoid TikTok if possible, but I will be doing a future show on TikTok and some of the people that reside there, and why these social media platforms. I believe that where we're in the age of we're supposed to have more knowledge, I think it's where you're diverting your knowledge. So, YouTube has its failings, but as a platform as a whole, it does give a lot of truth out there. Not as much as it did in, say, perhaps 2011 to 2014-16, but there we are. Censorship is censorship, as there we go is. So,
well, consent has to be documented, but it also has to be informed. And informed means you have to understand what you're consenting to. You needed to be walked through in great detail all of the issues that were relevant to you on the psychological and medical front, all the options that were available to you, and the pros and cons of all those options. I can't see in any possible way that that could have been done with any degree of thoroughness in something under 6 months of weekly therapy. And I would say that's an absolute minimum to walk anyone through something as complicated as what you laid out.
The problem with me starting it so young was not only that I couldn't consent, I couldn't really fathom the full picture of things. You know, I'll never be able to breastfeed. I'll never have that erogenous sensation in my chest back. I do hate to speak about it, but I'm experiencing sexual dysfunction at the age of 18. That's something that women usually go through when they're in their 40s to 50s. How was I supposed to know? The best decision for me, and I stopped transitioning at the age of 16.
Okay, so let's go back to when you were 12. About when did you hit puberty?
I had a fairly early puberty. Actually, I started developing at around the age of 9, if not a little bit earlier.
Okay, and so at 9, do you remember if that changed you emotionally?
Yeah, it did. It was really difficult for me, actually.
Okay, so let me give you a little background. You tell me if anybody's ever told you this before, okay? So, boys and girls before puberty, experience approximately the same levels of negative emotion. So that would be primarily anxiety and emotional pain, or even sometimes susceptibility to physical pain. And emotions like frustration and disappointment and shame and guilt and self-consciousness are all part of that, what would you call it, network of negative emotion. Now what happens to girls when they hit puberty, and no one knows exactly why this is that their negative emotion levels go up. And so that on average, women, biologically mature women, are more sensitive to negative emotion than biologically mature men. And that kicks in at puberty. Now there's a variety of explanations for that, but no one knows for certain. And here's some of them. Okay, so first of all, sexual dimorphism and physical strength really emerges at puberty. So boys and girls are pretty evenly matched physically, but once puberty kicks in, boys are taller, stronger, heavier, and they're much stronger in terms of upper body strength. So women are at a disadvantage physically in relationship to anything that might have to do with physical combat. And so on those grounds, it makes sense for women to be somewhat more sensitive to threat. Okay, so then another explanation is that women are more vulnerably sexually than men because they bear a much higher cost for reproduction, obviously, with pregnancy and protracted dependence of infants. And so they're more vulnerable on the sexual front, so it makes sense for them to be more sensitive to any threat that's associated with sexual activity. And then the third explanation, and there may be more, is that women are charged, generally speaking, with the primary responsibility for infants, and infants are extremely dependent and vulnerable. And so you could make a case that adult women's nervous systems are actually adapted for the mother-child dyad and not for the, say, emotional well-being of the individual woman. And a woman needs to be threat sensitive because she's going to be taking care of infants and extremely dependent children, and it makes sense for her to be more cognizant of threats as a consequence, even though the negative consequence of that for women and all of this is that women are much more likely to suffer from depression and anxiety than men. Cross-culturally, it's between 3 to 1 and 5 to 1. Now, men have their associated pathologies. Men are more likely to be antisocial, for example, and to abuse alcohol. But women predominate on the negative emotion side. And so And then I would say that's exacerbated, you know, if you hit puberty early, because you have to deal with these complexities of physiological transformation at a very young age. And so that's a difficult thing to handle emotionally. And then there's the additional consequence of whatever hormonal turbulence might emerge as a consequence of the onset of puberty. So it's very common for young women to experience high levels of negative emotion, and for those emotions to be focused on their body. Because another thing that's characteristic of female negative emotion is that the self-consciousness associated with that tends to focus very particularly on body shame and self-consciousness. And that might be because women are evaluated more rigorously on the basis of their physical appearance than men. Men are evaluated more harshly sexually, let's say, on the performance side, you know, with regard to socioeconomic status and so forth. But women are definitely evaluated more harshly by men and by each other in terms of their physical attractiveness. So that makes quite a complicated situation for girls who are making the transition into puberty, and a lot of them are depressed and anxious, and develop an intense focus on their body. So I don't know how much of that was explained to you by your therapists or the medical professionals, but that's all well documented psychological and medical information.
Yeah, none of that was really explained to me by therapists or even growing up. I mean, even so, every single part of what you said actually played a role in a lot of my childhood distress and my transition, and eventually my detransition. Actually, you know, growing up, I was a bit of a tomboy and also on the spectrum, and I didn't know this until I was diagnosed just last year, but it did play a role in my socialization and my difficulty getting along with other girls growing up. And I found that I fit in more with the boys. And when I hit puberty, it was a bit earlier than most of my peers, and I got taller than them. And you know, I could keep up with the boys then, and I had a lot of pride in that. But as the years went on, they started to get taller than me and outmatch me physically, and this did bring on a bit of distress for me. And you know, as I got older, socialization began to become more sex-oriented, and I found it even harder to fit in with girls my age. But at the same time, I was also starting to notice there was a divide between me and boys in several ways, and there was a lot of loneliness for me, because on one hand, I didn't really feel like I was one of the girls, but on the other hand, I was losing my connection with some of my friends who I was close with and really cared about. And I also had some body image issues growing up as well.
So I won't play the whole video. It's on Jordan B. Peterson, detransitioning the wounds that won't heal, and that's Shallow Call episode 139. And I think I will close it down from there. I think I'm going to leave it at that. But I will just finish it off with a video from this guy who's big advocate for when he became a transgender, and here's why he regretted it. And he's made a lot of videos on this, and to be honest with you, it's quite heartbreaking. I'm coming from a place of love here, and I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings. There could be people out there that perhaps need this, that it may actually help them before they do the transition. When I was younger, not so much psychology was offered to children, in this area at least as well.
I lived 8 years as Laura Jensen until I woke up and realized that it was totally insane to live this out. The first time that it happened in the 50s was Christine Jorgensen, but Jenner took it to the next level, and then 2015 it began to explode.
Are you a woman? Yes, for all intents and purposes, I am a woman. My brain is much more female than it is male.
Ladies and gentlemen, the courageous, the stunning Caitlyn Jenner.
We're ruining an entire generation of children. I find even hearing about it and reading about it so repugnant and so destructive to children.
Trans members of this family all love each other so proudly, and they all...
Bringing drag performers together with little kids is kind of a perfect relationship.
There are people whose gender might be a little bit of both, or might even be neither.
And it's time that this stuff needs to end. We need men and women to step up and say, stop this nonsense. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. You know, my upbringing was pretty much a typical California upbringing in Los Angeles in the early 40s. It wasn't really anything remarkable. At least not until my dad began to take me over and drop me off at my grandma's house. Grandma was a seamstress and made dresses. And I became very curious about her work, and my curiosity led to her making me a purple chiffon dress that she made just to fit my perfect little 4-year-old body. You know, at first it felt really exciting to have somebody telling me how wonderful and cute I was. But what I didn't realize was happening is the second Grandma began to tell me how cute I looked in that purple dress, what she was really saying was that there was something radically wrong with the little boy that I really was. And so that begins this sort of creepy kind of psychological and emotional destruction that starts with inside a young boy 4 years old who doesn't know what the consequences are going to be about putting on a dress at 4 years old, and keeping it a secret from my parents for nearly 2 years, until I became so accustomed to wearing that purple dress that I decided to take the dress home so that I could put it on when my parents weren't watching or when I was alone, and I could sort of listen and hear those affirmations. I became sort of addicted to the affirmations and hearing her say how cute I was. So I had the purple dress at home, but my mom found it in my bottom dresser drawer. And she said, well, where did you get this dress? And I said, well, Grandma made it. And that just blew the house up. My dad was upset. My mom was upset. It was supposed to be a secret. I broke the secret. And as a result of that, I could not go back to Grandma's house without my mom or dad being with me. Dad didn't know what to do. His mother-in-law had just been cross-dressing his young boy. He was so angry at my grandmother that he took his anger out in his discipline on me, and he started hitting me with a hardwood floor plank when I would do something wrong. Sometimes he was just being way too critical, but it was that what was built up in him because of what happened to me. He did not know what to do. If you can imagine in 1946, 47, there's no information about kids wearing dresses. But the next part of the equation was his adopted brother, Uncle Fred, heard about me wearing the purple dress, and Uncle Fred decided that I was fair game to be sexually abused. Uncle Fred was not playing with a full deck of cards, and he'd get drinking a little bit, and he would come looking for me, and he would molest me. The emotional and psychological issues that I had from Grandma affirming me, I didn't really realize the consequences of those for many years. The hardwood floor plank obviously was very devastating, and then the sexual abuse was sort of the cherry on top of the cake. I was a broken child before I was 10 years old. You know, I decided that maybe I should have been a girl, not realizing that what I was trying to do was escape the abuse, not actually change who I was. But it resulted in me going through this process for many years of cross-dressing, going out in public as a female. And so I went through this with, even in my first marriage. I had 2 children. I was an executive for American Honda Motor Company. I worked on the Apollo space missions as an associate design engineer. But that purple dress, the hardwood floor plank, and the sexual abuse was about to take everything away. Then the next critical step was struggling with my identity. I went to a gender specialist in San Francisco who promptly identified me with gender dysphoria or gender identity disorder, and promptly told me that I needed hormones and surgery. That was the treatment that he was prescribing to help me end the cycle of distress I was having about my gender because of what happened to me as a young child. The doctor I went to, his name is Dr. Paul Walker. Dr. Paul Walker was a homosexual transgender activist. He felt his job was to do like they're doing today, is to introduce people to hormones and surgery as a process of treatment. Now keep in mind, Dr. Paul Walker was not just your average therapist. Dr. Paul Walker was the author, the primary chairperson and author of the Harry Benjamin International Standards of Care, the very same standards of care that's being used today that's called WPATH Standards of Care. His agenda was pushing transgenderism, pushing surgery, and pushing hormones recklessly and really damaging someone's life like mine. I had kind of a devastating run of events. When I was struggling with alcoholism and drug addiction, I went into a treatment facility as Laura Jensen and came out the other side, and I went through a 2.5 or 3 hour therapy session with my psychologist. And during that day, I went through all of the things that had happened, the sexual abuse, the emotional abuse, the wrong idea about going through this procedure, all the things I'd done wrong, the destruction I did to my children and my ex-wife. And I wrote everything down after speaking about these issues, and he put a match to those yellow line paper and in the parking lot, and those papers began to burn, and the wind gently picked up the flame, and the papers were burned up, and it was sort of that cathartic moment where you realized, okay, all of that stuff now is lifted off of my shoulders. And he said, let's go back into my office and let's pray. Well, I'll be honest with you, this guy prays a lot, and he prays for a long time, and I did not want to go back in and pray with this guy because I figured I'd be there for like an hour praying. And as he prayed, I kept hearing him, and I kept thinking, is he going to end? And then there was a point in time when I couldn't hear him praying anymore. And miraculously, what I saw at that moment that I couldn't hear his voice was I saw the Lord Jesus Christ actually descending toward me with his arms stretched out. And I looked in front of me, and I saw that he was reaching toward a little baby. And I looked at the baby, and I go, that baby is me. The Lord is coming to claim me. And he turned to me and said, your life will be safe with me forever. And the Lord disappeared. I realized at that very moment, the Lord came to redeem and restore my life so that I will serve him every day after that date. I wanted to restore my life, bring myself back to reality. So faith played the pivotal role in me being here today. 35 years sober, married 24 years, and I detransitioned over 30 years ago. Thank the Lord, I've been very successful in providing help to many people. I haven't been able to help everybody, but I've been able to help a lot of people, and I'm very grateful for that. And I'm going to continue to speak out. I'm going to continue to work. I'm going to continue to try to help people who have no other place to turn. And so I started a website called sexchangeregret.com, and I work every single day with either a parent, a father, a transgender who has regret like I did. I work with psychologists, I work with college professors, I work with doctors, I work with lawyers. I am working to prevent people from going through this totally unnecessary, insane surgical procedure, and that's why I'm so passionate about trying to raise my voice and give people the opportunity to go, wait a minute, maybe this isn't right for me. And I'm going to continue doing it until the Lord comes and takes me home. And that's my mission, is to stop people from unnecessary surgery and stop the advocates from lying to people about them being able to change their gender.
So thank you for listening, and I hope this may help somebody out there. And yeah, there we are. What that's me at the end. Okay, you take care, and God bless you all. Wherever you are in this world, may the Lord be there with you. Amen.